Welcome to Monster Men.
Arr.
Yes.
That was perfect. That just saved my throat a little bit.
Good.
Folks who watch this show, Monster Boys and Monster Gals, I want you to get your cap and gowns because tonight we're going to give you an education because we have with us Professor, I'm going to say this one time, Greg Semenza, straight from The Godfather. He's a professor of English and Film Studies at the University of Connecticut. And by the way, after this interview is done, UConn will be known for both U and basketball. Maybe in that order.
Go Huskies.
He was hired originally to teach Shakespeare and Milton and cinematic adaptations of literary texts, as well as most semesters. He teaches half literature courses, Shakespeare, Milton. Oh, Milton's a tough one. And half film classes, horror film, classic Hollywood cinema, documentary film, etc. And I wish I became a teacher. He has written on a range of topics from the Renaissance sports culture to Milton's Satan in pop culture to the Sex Pistols to horror films like Let the Right One In, The Mist, which is the feel-good movie of the universe, and The Witch. His two recent books are The History of British Literature in Film, a lot of Hammer horror honeys there, and Powell and Pressburg's War, The Act of Propaganda. So we're very happy to have him here. By the way, you are our second Professor of the Year.
Wow. All right.
You're making us feel smarter.
I watched that last episode with the guy from Arizona, right? Which I enjoyed.
Good old Jarrett Keene.
Jared,
big comic book fan. Him and I are just geeking out about comic books every day.
Nice.
Let me tell the audience how I discovered you. So I live in Connecticut. He teaches at UConn. So naturally, that's who we all root for in college basketball. But we also get the Connecticut news links in our Twitter feeds and all that. And I clicked on an article one day about this professor at UConn who was teaching classes about like the horror literature and horror. The big draw was the top 100 horror movies of all time. And then it was like, oh, he's teaching classes on horror movies and stuff. And I'm just like, okay, this is a horror movie guy and he's in my state. I gotta look him up, shot him an email, and we became friends over email, in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I appreciated you reaching out like that, and I appreciate you guys having me on the show too.
It's like Freaks, Google Gobble, one of us.
Yes, that was a movie I was thinking about talking about. Yeah.
Where were these classes when I went to school? I took a film class, and the professor showed Psycho, made us watch Psycho from start to finish 6 times in 2 weeks. By the time it was done, I said, I think I hate Psycho. I hate this class, and I hate Psycho.
It is kind of a huge part of what you wind up teaching, is just thinking back on your own days and kind of like, especially now where you're trying to figure out what to do in a moment where almost no one's reading, So obviously the film classes are a little bit easier to handle now than a lot of the literature classes that I also teach. But what is the course that I would most like to have taken when I was in college? It's definitely a course on the horror film. No question. So.
You were so right about nobody reads. I do book signings, I do appearances, and I get so many people go, is this a movie? Is this a show? Yeah. And at this point, I just go, yes, it's going to be.
Just get them in however you can, right? Yeah.
Get it before it's on TV.
So. Yeah. Well, you would love this too, as a writer one of the things that I do hear a lot more these days is I want to be a writer, but I don't like to read, so I just, and it's as if it's kind of getting it out immediately. And I just try to respond as honestly as possible, which is to say that doesn't exist. Like that's, that is not going to happen. You have to read, right. To write. So
I tell people, I've heard people tell me that too. I want to write. I don't really read, or I don't like to read. And I'll say, well, it's the equivalent of being a plumber and you don't know what a sink is.
Yeah.
I said, there's just no point in it. So find something else.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what's going to happen? They'll just get ChatGPT to write book for them and then become bestsellers in 5 years.
I mean, that's the other thing, right, that we're dealing with, that just attention spans. And I want to be careful here too in saying up front that I feel like I'm working with the students, right, to overcome these issues, because I think when we have these conversations, it can often sound like we're just pointing the finger at them, but they've really been screwed by everything. I mean, they've just sort of come up, sort of, no one is really looking out for this generation. No one is trying to kind of explain to them what these little monster machines do, you know, in their pockets. And I think a lot of them like hate it as much as we do, you know, like, I mean, they hate what it's doing to their brains, or, you know, they don't like being addicted, obviously, to it. But then on the other side, it's amazing because it's like, even a 2-hour film now can be a real challenge for certain, you know, people. And hey, I think films have gotten too long. So I can agree with some of it, but give me a good like 90-minute film, I'll take it any day. But you know, it's not like reading Proust, right? I mean, it's, you know, we should be able to deal with a 2-hour film. So.
It's true that they talk about how our attention span is getting shorter and shorter, but movies are getting longer and longer. I'm like, and then they can't figure out why nobody's going to the movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the 2.5-hour Frankenstein, which is wonderful that we just watched Guillermo del Toro's version of Frankenstein. It was wonderful, but you want to get young people watching it, and you're not going to do it with a movie that long.
Agreed. Yeah. And it's often in films where it doesn't need to be, you know, that long. You can feel the filler. And it's often, you know, it's like these, I mean, as much as I love, you know, the fight scene in They Live, all these fight scenes at the ends of these movies don't need to be a half an hour of the same thing over and over, you know. So, wow, I started ranting right from the gate. Sorry.
You're right in our wheelhouse right now.
Well, the reading too is, I'm friends with him, so I get exposed to, I've met all these authors and other friends of mine. I am not an author. But I like when people are talking about like the mainstream horror books that they're reading and stuff, and they're like, have you read this? I'm like, no, I have a pile of people that have been on our show or I've met at events that I'm reading their books. And I haven't read something like by Stephen King in years because I'm reading stuff from people I know. But I wonder if like a younger person, Stephen King is definitely a good gateway. But I know, like, I read Dracula when I was in like 6th grade. Like, would a 6th grader now be able to get through that book? Like, their attention spans, even for, you know, reading one story that's going to take you several days or weeks to get through, when everything is on TikTok for 30 seconds.
Yeah,
you know?
it's a real challenge. And I mean, it's changed the way we structure our courses. And, you know, I mean, we're talking to, there are different populations, you know, and in most of the English classes, we're still trying to push, you know, the students, and most of them love reading, right? And if you get the history majors and, but in the gen ed courses, it's a bit of a struggle. And so, you know, you try to figure out ways to split up the readings. You know, maybe it's a little bit of a theory reading, and then that's accompanied by a film that week. It's a different approach, but we're also trying to make the case in these classes, right, that, hey, this is what's different about reading. This is it's good for your brain, right? It's going to make you feel calmer. It's going to allow you to focus in ways that these other media are not. So you hope to win over like a percentage of those students. And one of the most gratifying things is actually hearing at the end of the semester that, like, okay, you know, I get it. I'm going to go read these other Stephen King novels or another Shakespeare play or whatever it might be. So
it's
now that
okay, go ahead, Jack.
I was going to say that Frankenstein movie, just to put a cap on it, 2.5 hours. A lot of people have watched it. It has an intermission, so there's a good break if you want to watch half one night and the other. Midnight Mass, the series.
Mike Flanagan,
Mike Flanagan. Like, that was, I think, making things into like limited series is now like the better way, because you can make it 3 hours long and people are like, I don't want to watch a 3-hour movie, but they'll watch 3 hours worth of episodes in one night because you get that psychological break.
I think it's a really good point. Yeah. I mean, it is funny, right, that we're talking about this at a time when like theaters are struggling to keep their there are lights on and people are talking about even the length of movies and the way that we're doing, but everyone's binging, 8 seasons of Dexter or whatever it is at the same
Yes.
time. And I mentioned that one specifically because it's popular again with my students. So these things kind of come back around. But what you said is absolutely true. It's just maybe sometimes about the way that it's structured. And I guess I'm feeling that with novels too, right? I mean, that there's more of a kind of short chapter structure often, right? That I think is very helpful. Even in academic writing, I think you'll see more kind of subsection, writing. So, it's all definitely reflecting the times.
It's the James Patterson effect, where no chapter is more than 4 pages, which writing is a pain in the ass. I did one of those.
It works for me. I will read 20 pages broke into 4-page sections is so much conquerable. Part of it is because I'm going to bed and it's like, okay, I want to read till the end of this chapter. Oh, the next chapter is only 3 pages. Okay. And suddenly before you know it, I've read 50 pages. Whereas if that one chapter was 50 pages, if I conk out after 10, I got to put a bookmark in the middle of.
You lose the rhythm. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so hard to write though, because you have to pack so much in such a little space and just keep building and building and build to like, 80, 90, 100 chapters.
You got to do better, man.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I did it once and I said, don't ask me to do it again.
Greg, you talk about movies.
Structure and post. Yeah, absolutely.
Before we go to movies, I just want to say one thing, and because look, I read like 100 books a year. You brought up a great point, and I just was talking to somebody about this. I said, as readership goes down, anxiety goes up.
Yeah.
When you disconnect from your phone, your TV, everybody, and you just sit down for half an hour and read a book where there's nothing but your imagination that's lit up, it's better than a Xanax.
Yes.
In fact, I think the more you do it, you'll find you have less dependency on stuff like that.
I used to wear one of those.
Couldn't agree more.
One of those watches that like counts your steps and all that other kind of stuff. And it's connected to your email. So I'd be in like a doctor's appointment and my wrist is vibrating.
Right.
And, you could see a little preview and it's like, oh, angry client. And I'm like, my blood pressure is going to be through the roof because I'm wearing this stupid thing on my.
Yeah.
It's insanity.
No, it's that flow state, that you hear about, that like that is the most gratifying, satisfying kind of state for your you to experience. It really calms you down. I think anxiety, depression, a lot of different things, it helps to treat. And, I know I'm talking to a lot of people who do what I do, like in English departments, who are like, great readers who have just fallen off. I mean, they're reading less for pleasure. They're struggling more to keep that focus and that flow state in their writing and their reading. And I think there's more of a kind of sense now of people. We're talking a lot more about it. We're talking about strategies, like how do you just kind of get back to this kind of flow? How do you sit down in a chair, put your phone in a different room, right? Shut off like messaging on your laptop so that when you're writing, you're not getting notifications, like these little things that can make a huge difference. But I worry about this generation. I worry about my own kids who are both in college now. They grew up big readers. I mean, and they're still good readers, but some of these kids never experienced that. And so like to try to win them over to it now, it's not just like, hey, remember, like we have that, right? Like at our age. Yeah. But a lot of these kids never experience that, and so it's a real challenge.
It's going to be interesting. My daughters are in their 20s, and I had one huge reader and one non-reader.
Yeah,
and even the huge readers, like she reads, it's on her phone, and it's interrupted by every text from her boyfriend or a video that pops up. So it's not as immersive anymore.
And then there's listening to books, which
if you want me to just trail off into another planet, listening to a book, I'm just all over the map.
Yeah,
I get too distracted.
Yeah. It depends. You know what I love? Actually, just put this on the table. And the New Yorker now has a short stories podcast where one short story writer picks another short story writer whose story they want to feature, and they've all appeared in the New Yorker over the last however many decades. And it's great because it's half an hour and you can focus, and then they talk about the story. And so I find that very, very satisfying.
I have to try that.
Yeah, it's worth checking out. Some
Yeah.
great stuff. I mean, lots of good horror kind of in the mix too.
I'm writing it down right now. All right, Jack, get us into movies.
Okay, so you were nice enough to send us the course schedule. And I think this is both where Hunter and I were seriously, we're both like, where the hell was this when I was going to school? At the same time, I feel like a lot of the work we did to master a lot of this stuff was done over a lifetime.
Yeah.
Like we've seen so many of these movies, and I'm like, wow, when I was in college, I had seen a lot of horror movies, but there's a lot of stuff on this list. I mean, a lot of it didn't exist either, but
yeah.
I was like, what's that thing where they think they got to put 10,000 hours in on something?
Yeah, right, exactly, right, yeah.
I think I put that in college. I feel like I did.
Sure, right. That's when we all did it, right? Like just the video store every day.
I've always been dancing with wanting to do an episode about something in the ballpark of what are like horror 101. Like when you say, how can you call yourself a horror fan? Or in our cases, we're podcasters. Like, what are the movies that you have to see to be legit in this, to hold your own in a conversation? But then I looked at it, and after speaking with you and being like, it's almost two sides of this though, because there's like an academic side to this, and then there's like an entertainment side to this. Because like some of the stuff that's on the academic side isn't the most fun stuff,
right?
But it might be important. So I'm looking forward to see where this conversation goes. And some of the movies that popped up on this list, it's like, oh my God, I can't believe that like somebody else is even aware of this movie.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I think what I try to do, I mean, it's really tricky. I mean, there's nothing more painful than, making your 20 selections for a semester. I always want, give me a year, I want like a deep cuts follow-up class. I want all that.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to, as I say to the students on day one, my criteria for selection are mainly influence, right? Like what are the most influential films? And what are the most sort of emblematic films of their moment, right? And we're trying to situate the films historically in a couple of different ways. Like one way in terms of like, at the moment of their production, right? So if we're thinking about what is a good choice for representing the 1930s, that glorious, horror decade. Mm-hmm. But then also, how do we think about contextualizing these films diachronically, like through time? And that helps me a lot. But then even when you get to that, like, okay, so how do you make a decision between Dracula and Frankenstein in 1931? How do you make a decision between like Psycho and Peeping Tom and Eyes Without a Face in 1960? There's a certain amount of randomness always. And so that's where I might look at questions like you were just raising about entertainment value. Like guessing to a degree, what do I think the students might respond to, knowing something about these students?
I will help you with Dracula and Frankenstein. One is a good movie.
Yeah.
One is not a good movie.
Yeah.
That is filmed like it's the play.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. But
by the way, Bride of Frankenstein to me is the one you should teach.
Absolutely the best.
That's
right?
the best of I think the 30s. That's one of the best of the 30s.
So you also wind up making these difficult decisions based on kind of previous decisions, right? So this semester I found myself in a situation where I decided to choose Dracula because I had chosen Nosferatu for the 1920s. And sometimes I'll follow that up with the horror of Dracula in, the Hammer film, and giving them 3 chances, right, to kind of deal with the same material, to think about how different filmmakers, right, handle it. I agree. I mean, Frankenstein's the easy, better film. The one that I actually like the most is Island of Lost Souls, and that's sort of on my list, right, of like a 101 kind of film for the 30s specifically. But it's like so many great films, all an hour and 10 minutes, by the way, too. Right? So,
brevity. They understood brevity.
Yeah.
Island of Lost Souls is I tell people all the time, that's the one you should watch. I'm like, you've got the Island of Dr. Moreau with Burt Lancaster and was it Michael York? Which, as a kid, I have nostalgia, but
Yeah.
you got the Brando car wreck that you
Crazy,
can't
right.
turn away from. But
Right.
Island of Lost Souls to me is the best adaptation. And it's got Bela Lugosi,
Yeah.
so you
And
can't beat it.
it's
But
crazy.
that's also
too.
what makes Dracula worth watching. Bela Lugosi is just amazing in that movie.
You know, and on that front, I mean, we do an Academy Awards like ceremony at the end of the semester where everyone has to answer questions like best film, scariest film, favorite film, best actor, you know, etc. And I only give them one slot for best actor, and 90% of the answers are actresses because you know horror is so female protagonist driven. And so Sissy Spacek. I mean, there's certain easy answers there. Lupita Nyong'o gets a lot of votes. The only man who ever gets votes is Bela Lugosi in Dracula. So the students get it. I mean, they really like that performance, even if they feel a little bored by the film. So.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of got pigeonholed a little bit, but if you watch all his stuff, I mean, when he comes on screen, you can't take your eyes off him, no matter what he's doing. The Black Cat is, I don't know if you've ever shown that to your students.
I haven't.
That's a weird one. When was it Lugosi casually throws a knife at a cat off screen, kills it?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
We're in another world right here.
It's a looking film too. It's just it's a beautiful looking.
Yeah,
film.
it's like not castles, it's Art Deco, and it's just that's a movie I don't think gets enough attention.
That's a weird movie.
It's very weird, but man, it is so watchable.
Have
you mentioned?
Have you ever seen The Devil Bat with Bela Lugosi?
Oh yeah, I think I own it.
Is that different than The Bat?
Yeah, it is. It's one of the goofiest movies ever made.
I think I've only seen The Bat.
Bonkers. It's like it involves him inventing this hairspray that causes his victims to attract this killer bat. I mean, it makes no sense. It's a classic B film, but I absolutely adore it. I mean, I just think it's it's a lot of fun.
They talk about 80s coke fueled movies. The 30s was, I think they were smoking a lot of hash or something. I don't know what was going on in the 30s.
I don't want to jump out of the 30s too quickly, but you mentioned Peeping Tom. And I have to say, in preparation of this, I'd never seen Peeping Tom, and it's been on my queue.
Nice.
That again, this is the line between just a horror fan and doing homework. I was like, you know what? I always knew I need to see this because it's the birth of the slasher movie. And when I watched it, I was like, wow, the colors in this movie. It looks like an Alfred Hitchcock movie. Yeah. It's got that 60s. I was thinking of the Last Night in Soho was like, this is the look that movie was trying to recapture. And but like
did you like it?
I enjoyed watching it, but I think I enjoyed watching it from a historical perspective.
Yeah.
That I don't know if I was a kid and I watched that, I would have been like, this movie's dumb.
Yeah, I think it's so that is Michael Powell, the director, who my last book was about Powell and his screenwriter Pressburger, and he's one of the most revered British filmmakers of all time. He made a lot of great films during the 40s that were in the war effort, basically. The Red Shoes, Black Narcissus, A Matter of Life and Death, these really great films. When he made Peeping Tom in 1960, it ruined his career overnight. It was just an absolute scandal. It was pulled by the distributor, Amalgamated, and just basically they were trying to destroy the print. They wound up selling it off.
Wow.
It was not seen by anyone for a long time. And then Martin Scorsese, like as is often the case, basically brought the film back in the 1970s, helped to do so. But there's something about that film that, it's interesting that Hitchcock pulled it off, right? It became a sensation in 1960, but this film ruined someone's career. And there is a bit of truth to the idea that Hitchcock learned from that reception, because that story about how he basically told exhibitors that they couldn't let anyone into the theater once Psycho had started, that they had to be there at the beginning or they wouldn't be admitted. That was unheard of. I mean, people used to just walk into a theater halfway through, sit there, let it run again. And so he also didn't allow any pre-screenings of Psycho, so critics couldn't go off on the film prior to the audience experiencing it. And so it seems that that film coming out 5 or 6 months after Peeping Tom, you know, it might have saved Psycho, right, from a similar fate.
Yeah.
So it's a really pioneering film, and it's a great film about the obsessiveness of filmmaking. You know, like just his inability to put down the camera, right? And my students, what they do, Jack, like I think where they connect with it because they struggle on a certain level. You must have noticed that great scene where Mark is about to go out for the first time with his girlfriend. And she asks him, "Can you just do me a favor on our first date? Just leave the camera at home tonight?" And he says, "Okay," and he puts it away, and he goes out and he has a great time. And he says, "The best night of my life." He's not lugging around the technology.
Putting his phone down.
Yeah.
It's funny because
like this.
things that were going through my head, I was like, not only did this have, you know, a big effect on the slasher movie, but the found footage movie also owes a tip of the cap to this.
Yeah, it might be the first example in horror of like a found footage segment. You know, I mean, it is segments, but
Yeah.
it's often quoted as being the beginning. You know, in a lot of ways. So.
I mean, come on, let's not take everything away from Cannibal Holocaust.
Such a great.
Cannibal Holocaust doesn't have
huge
the like
film.
bouncy dance girl in it.
But Jack,
Yeah,
didn't we
right.
watch that movie like after drinking and doing Monster Men all day?
Yes.
Yeah, we did. That was the best way to watch it when you're just like,
Cannibal
half in the
Holocaust.
bag and tired.
We watched Cannibal Holocaust together, and I had never seen it. And at one point, I just turned to him and go, "Did they really just kill that tarantula?"
Yeah, right.
And he's like, "I think they did. We rewound it." And then later, there's the turtle, and the two of us are like, "What the hell is going on in this movie?"
Yeah, and the fact that stuff's real just makes it so much worse. You know, it's just, and that story, right, of Diodato, the director, getting arrested on suspicion of murder because they, you know, the Italian authorities, the Milanese authorities thought it was a snuff film. You know, it's like,
Right.
it's amazing, you know, how realistic it is.
In your classes, do you bring this up? Because I know you had a thing about unwatchable horror movies.
Yeah.
Do you ever talk about that or something like Snuff? Like you brought, remember the movie Snuff that turned out to be fake, but at the time we were, I don't know why. What is wrong with a 14-year-old that feels the need to watch a Snuff movie? But
Yeah.
do you ever talk about? I know you talk about things like Martyrs, Irreversible, Threads. Do you ever go that deep to like the really unwatchable stuff?
We theorize it. I did a thing a couple of years ago where I allowed students to skip the class on Martyrs, but I did teach it. And at the time, it was a smaller class, and I think it was 50 students, and only about 10 came in. And I had prepped them, and I said, I don't want you to just do some crazy thing where you're watching this movie just to prove a point. Like, you need to know how difficult and disturbing it is. But regardless of whether we're doing a film that's like that hardcore or not, we theorize it. And one of the great things about the concept of the unwatchable, which is just based on a recent book of the same, using the same term, is the fact that it's trying to distinguish between what like is real horror, real world horror, and what is art horror, essentially.
Right.
And so these films that like blur the line between those two things, the Cannibal Holocausts, are of special interest. Like, why, again, the horror paradox, why would you subject yourself to something that is so deeply unpleasant, you know? So it does a lot of work for us, but I also try not to just do that for the sake of like being sensational or shocking the students. I mean, we are doing, audition. We do Texas Chainsaw Massacre in the first week of the semester. So it's not like it's an easy ride necessarily, but I don't do Threads. I teach it to my grad students, but I don't do it in the undergraduate class.
I had an editor, I hadn't heard of Threads, and he said, "Have you ever seen Threads?" I'm like, I don't know what the hell it is. Is this a sewing movie? And he got me a copy of it. And I texted him when I was done. I was like, "Hey, that was a laugh riot. Do you have anything else?" But it's movies like that. they're not movies that I want to watch over and over again, but I appreciate the conversations that they start. Like when Martyrs ended, I watched that with my wife, the original French version.
Yeah.
And when it was over, she was horrified, like mouth open.
As she should be.
And I said, there's a case where this is all justified.
Yeah.
And she thought I was a monster. And then we just had this long discussion. And I appreciated the fact that we were just having this deep discussion that, when you're married, you got kids and they were young at the time, you don't have many of those. It's just, are the kids alive? Is there dinner on the table? A movie like that, or Megan is Missing. Jack and I talk about this movie all the time, which I've never had a movie. We watched that movie, and then we called our daughters into the room. They were teenagers at the time. A long discussion with them about social media and strangers.
Yes.
And I haven't watched it again, but it sits deep in all of us. And whenever, like, even my daughters will be like, they haven't watched it either, but they'll go, "Oh, it's the Megan is Missing conversation." But they add value.
And that conversation is the point, right? Like if it's causing us to reflect on whether or not that kind of level of excess and kind of unwatchability is purposeful, like it has a point other than to simply shock, I think there's usually a case that can be made for it. And I do think Martyrs has a point, and I think that Threads certainly has a point. Salo, 120 Days of Sodom has a point. I find that still to be probably the most difficult one to get through. But, I watched movies. I don't know if you guys watched like the VHS Halloween thing that came out.
Yeah,
recently.
We did.
One of those just kind of set me off a bit. And, it was the one about the child. The
child molester
video store
guy.
Yeah. And, again, I want to have conversations about it. I never entirely trust my own judgment, especially the first time, but it felt like shock, more to me than anything else. But it's not on the level of like Terrifier, which again, I don't relate to those films in any real way, but
I hate those movies.
Yeah.
Because you talk about shock with a purpose or just shock for the sake of shock.
Yep.
And you just become numb to it. And it just, after a while, it's like, I don't even know what the point of this is.
I'm talking about movies that are too long.
Yeah.
And movies that are way too long.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We're not fans of Art the Clown here.
Good. Okay. Yeah.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I just showed my nephew that movie for the first time. We watched Heat and then Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And number one, I can tell you this: he's a great kid. He loves movies and stuff. But he was doing some work and stuff. So during Heat, he kept like looking down at his computer and stuff, and I'd be like, "You need to watch this part. Hey, don't miss this." Then like we went and got some food, and we just put on Texas Chainsaw. So we were paying more attention to that. But as we were watching it, and he enjoyed it, but if I could get in his head, I'd be like, "What the hell does this kid in his late 20s think of this movie?" Because we grew up raised in the 70s, 80s, VHS store. We were used to that 70s aesthetic and pacing and weirdness in movies that I'm like, what is a kid in a college student? Like the first like 20 minutes of the movie is these kids riding around in a van.
Yeah.
And then you got the chainsaw stuff, and then you get that family that you're like, what is going on here? Like, do they love it? Are they like baffled by it?
I think that it's one of the ones that actually causes a little bit of a mixed reaction. I don't encounter many students who don't like it. Some of them don't think it's very scary, which I always find amazing, because that film for me is always like, the gold standard, or it's up there. Certainly the first time I ever saw it, I mean, I remember that feeling. You have that memory of a few films right in your life, and it definitely got me. I went to see a screening of it in New York last year for the 50th anniversary, and I took my two boys and my wife. we went down and we saw it, and someone passed out in the theater.
Oh,
Like the stories you always hear, like someone actually dropped and went down, and it was the scene. It wasn't a scene where Pam's being put on a meat hook. It's the scene where the hitchhiker takes the knife and cuts his hand,
Right.
and then cuts Franklin. And someone just passed out. They made a noise and passed out. So it's still effective. The point again is like, how do you get people to focus, right, and immerse themselves in a film world, which is kind of like the same problem of immersing yourself in a novel world or whatever it might be, because it may just be the distraction. Like, I'm convinced that if people focus, they will see they will feel the power, right, of a film like that. But
Do you teach your students that Franklin is maybe the most irritating character in the
yes,
history of horror film?
yeah, and I love that, he's there are some interesting pieces too from like a disability studies perspective on how great that is, right? Because he's treated like any other annoying human being, right? There's not this sort of different kind of treatment, and so he's a really interesting character. But,
Yeah, that would not happen now.
probably
And I feel it because my wife's handicapped, so we're very we treat her just like anybody else, and in fact, make fun of a lot of her shortcomings. But she appreciates that. She just hates the pussyfooting and the special attention that they give. She's, I'm just a regular person. I'm like,
that's the argument that's made by a lot of defenders of that character.
Mm-hmm.
now before we get into like more of the other pivotal movies, I saw a movie mentioned on your document that I had to bring up, because when Hunter and I talk about movies that scared us when we were kids, when I was a kid, me and my dad were down, we had a fire going and the TV was on, and then he went upstairs to get something to eat or something, and Let's Scare Jessica to Death we were watching. And so I watched like a half hour of that movie by myself, and he came down and I was like under a chair, like then I watched it in the past, I don't know, 15 years or so, and I was like laughing at what I was,
it's not as scary as you remember.
Yeah. But there was certain things that I was like, oh my God, I totally remember that scene, like plain as day. And then I'm like watching it and going, this feels like it's in Connecticut. So I'm Googling it and I'm like, oh, that whole movie was filmed in Connecticut. So it's one for us.
Like House of the Devil, like all these, so many great Connecticut horrors.
House of the Devil to me is top 5 of all
The
time.
Innkeepers.
I love the Innkeepers too. Yeah.
By the way, when they were filming House of the Devil, they were staying at that hotel from the Innkeepers, which gave them the idea to make the Innkeepers.
Oh, cool! All right, I didn't know that. I have to go back and watch the Innkeepers again. It's been a long time, and I have to go back and watch Jessica too. But I had a similar experience with that film the first time I saw it, and I know Stephen King, doesn't he still call it the scariest film he saw? I mean,
does he really?
In Danse Macabre, he talks about that film particularly. So,
but who knows? He was on cocaine and drinking tall boys when he was writing that. So who knows?
Yeah. Right.
I'll tell you. Here's the movie. This is the movie that got me as a kid, and nothing really got me. My dad took me to see The Exorcist when it came out. I was like 6, perfectly fine with it.
Oof, man. From
Hell It Came. Scared that thing with the walking tree with the constipation face.
Yeah.
That scared the hell out of me. I don't know why.
So random what it is, like when you look back on that stuff, right? Do you remember that movie Gargoyles from that?
Oh yeah,
it was like that
TV movie. Yeah.
What's his name? Bernie Casey, is that his name?
That's right. Yeah.
That's
so. But Gargoyles is the example I use of my sadness that TV channels are going away.
I know. Because
I remember standing in my kitchen with a little black and white TV and just clicking the manual dial, and Channel 5 in New York was showing Gargoyles. I probably came in halfway through and I saw this like thing flying across the sky or something. I was like, oh, we're leaving this on. Yeah. I saw the second half of Gargoyles. And then again, I watched that in its complete format not that long ago. And I was like, oh, I never realized Scott Glenn was in this movie and stuff like that.
Really? See, I have no memory of that at all. I've never gone back to it. I mean, I always intend to, but I've never done it.
The Gargoyles still look good.
Yeah.
There's
Okay.
really good
I'm gonna
makeup.
watch it. I'm gonna go back to it this week.
But like people aren't stumbling upon it. That's why I love your
Yeah,
class. Is you're exposing people, and if you're not talking about it, I love your notes that you have. Like also, it's almost like you might also like.
Yes.
Trying to get them doing that work, because you'll get you get 2 kids in every class of 100, say, that have seen it all. Like they've seen every film on the list. And I'm like, not the recommended films necessarily, but the ones that are required,
Right.
or close to it. But most of the students, they come in, they say, I love horror, but they watch The Conjuring. They've seen the recent stuff, which is great. It kind of made them fans, and now they're often watching Alien for the first time. They're watching The Exorcist for the first time. So I agree that the algorithm has destroyed, right, like that kind of wonderful feeling of like accidental discovery, right? You kind of like what you don't know what you like, though, and it's that idea that I even get it on my screen all the time, right? Like since you like movies about strong female leads in the 1930s, watch this.
Yep.
But for me, the film like that was Salem's Lot, the TV movie like that. I mean, I'm 1972, so I would have been like what, 5 or 6 when that thing when I accidentally flipped onto it and the window thing happened, and never got over it. But I loved that intense feeling. Like it didn't become a negative experience like over time.
People now watch that movie, and a younger person, the first thing they say is how slow it is. And I'm like, for me, that's one of the scariest movies ever.
Yeah. Because
anybody who watched it was terrified of the kid in the window, and they did. Yes, it's TV movie from 79?
Yeah, 79. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Same year as Herzog's Nosferatu. That's right. Yeah.
By the way, one of my highlights of my life was seeing Jack meet those 2 actors at a horror convention, because Jack is a Salem's Lot maniac.
I had the older
fun watching him.
I met the older Glick boy and the what's his name, Lance Kerwin.
Which one of them died right after
Lance
that?
Kerwin died shortly after that. He was a mess. But the kid
was overwhelming.
I met Jack from Monster Men.
The Glick kid was funny, because I probably said what everybody said to him in line. It was like, "Damn you! How many nights did I lay awake just letting you go? The master commands it."
Right, exactly. Right. God, that scene, unbelievable.
But you're so right. It's like a whole generation now has literally the world right here, the whole world, but they tunnel into only the things they like. Yeah. So, and they're less exposed to things than, because we grew up, we had 5 channels, and you watch whatever the hell was on. So you saw everything. You see W.C. Fields, Gone with the Wind, something from the 60s. We got exposed to everything.
Would be, like, for me, Channel 11 at midnight on Saturday showed a Hammer movie.
WPIX, right?
I watched those, and then there was Creature Feature and Schiller on the weekends. And then what did the 4:30 movie have?
And then PBS would always once a year play the Universal Monsters, which was like was like, all right, we're not moving from the TV.
Yep. So that's like Friday Night will always be one of my favorite movies, but just that experience, right?
Yeah. And then again, the flicking around, like Tourist Trap. I'll never forget. I was in high school at my uncle's beach house in New Jersey, and everybody else is going to bed, and I'm watching Tourist Trap. And my little cousin woke up. He's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm watching a movie." We're watching Tourist Trap, and he was getting scared, but then I started imitating the way that the mannequins were talking or whatever, and he started laughing. So now it's still a thing with us. Where
you never forget that stuff. Yeah,
I imitate Tanya Roberts.
Yeah,
I was walk around.
Can you do it for me?
Yeah. She grew up in my neighborhood, by the way.
Really? Wow.
Neighborhood girl.
Sheena.
Good old Sheena, yes.
What are some of the movies you love to cover? I saw like Let the Right One In on there.
Yeah. So what we do is the first half of the semester is theory of horror. So pretty much I choose some of the real, obvious masterpieces, and we do one film a week for 6 or 7 weeks. And so I'll pair like a major reading, like Monster Theory, a piece by Jeffrey Jones Cohen, and we'll put it next to a film that pairs well with it. So it becomes an example for the students to test the theory on, basically. And so we do that in the first few weeks, and I'm choosing bangers like, Carrie, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, those types of films. Jaws, is a blast. That's what we did with Monster Theory. And they also help us to get into big questions. Why do we like horror? Why do we sort of choose to put ourselves in positions where we feel scared? Films like Jaws, like, what is a horror film, right? Like, why would we define that as a horror film as opposed to something else? And then in week 7, what we do is we start back at the beginning, right? So we go back to the 1920s, we do Nosferatu, and then every week we do 2 films, and we represent decades, basically moving all the way back up to the current age. I do less 21st century stuff because, as I say to the students, like, you guys don't need me to make you go watch, the latest Jordan Peele film. You need me to make you watch a 1940s film. And the only decade that gets like extra treatment is the 70s. I usually wind up doing 6 or 7 films from the 70s, but most of the other decades get 1 to 2 films. So that's kind of the way that the course is structured.
Does the 80s get any special attention? Because the 70s and 80s are 2 magical.
70s is the best year of just films, period, no matter genre.
Yeah.
80s, I think horror genre was just king.
Amazing. We just did the 80s, and we did American Werewolf, which is probably my favorite horror film of all time. Amazing childhood memories of it, and then it's just the film. It's like a warm blanket. I always say, like, films like Let the Right One, and there's certain films that I just want to watch every year, and I'm always excited to do it.
I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, it's something. And then we did Poltergeist, and Poltergeist, they struggle a little with that sometimes. It's also not my favorite film, but we do it in part because it goes well with other themes that we're exploring, having to do with mainly like the kind of propaganda of the nuclear family at the time and different things like that.
Right.
So I've taught Return of the Living Dead. I mean, I've taught all kinds of 80s films. I think it's important in a class to sometimes just do a Return of the Living Dead, to do a film and to actually go into the class and say, okay, this unlike everything else we're doing is not celebrated because of its importance in the civil rights movement or its allegory of grief or whatever it might be. It's just great. It's just fun. It's hilarious. It's everything you want a film to be. Should we do this? Should I teach this? Like, do we have anything to say about it beyond? And then they go nuts, because they love it, right?
Yeah.
They want to talk.
You can tie it to Alien. You say it was directed by the guy who wrote Alien.
There you go.
And never directed again.
I know.
Well,
I'm done with this nonsense.
Night of the Living Dead gets a lot of press. A lot of people talking about it. It's on a lot of people's lists and whatever.
It's on the background of every movie anybody watches in a horror movie.
Yes.
It's
public domain.
Public domain, yeah.
But Dawn of the Dead and Return of the Living Dead may be the 2 like most important horror movies, because what the zombie genre has become.
Yeah.
Dawn of the Dead is the thing that, like, I liked Night of the Living Dead. Then I saw Dawn of the Dead. It changed my life. Then I saw Return of the Living Dead that had fast zombies and they were talking and it was funny.
Yeah.
And suddenly I was like, oh, between these 2 things, I have everything I've ever needed in a horror movie. I've got the gore, I've got the action, I've got the funny.
And they like brains. Yeah. The first ones to eat brains, right?
Yeah. Now everyone talks about zombies eating brains.
I was saying to my class that, they all played that Plants vs. Zombies, game on their phone, like my kids did. And they say brains, right? The zombies say that. And that's Dan O'Bannon again. So
there's where it came from. I have a suggestion for you.
Yeah.
My favorite Universal movie of all time is Creature from the Black Lagoon.
No argument.
I got to meet Julie Adams and I got to meet Rico Browning. which was Crowning Achievements. You should teach that movie. And also the companion book, The Lady from the Black Lagoon, about Millicent Patrick, who designed the creature, which I think would fascinate younger students who are like, this male-dominated genre. Well, one of the best creature makeup effects of all time was made by a woman who got shafted, completely shafted, because it was a male-dominated industry. But if you compare those two, I think students will really love that. I have seen that movie in every way you could see it. I've seen it in 3D, real 3D. I've seen it with the 3D glasses you got from 7-Eleven back in the day.
I remember that. Yep.
I saw it once with an orchestra performing the music, and I was in the front row, and I was cavelling the entire time. I'm Irish, and I was cavelling. Yeah, I can't see that movie enough. And also let them know there's 2 others. So many people go, I love Creature. I said, did you ever see the other 2? There's 2 more. I said, yes, they go down in grade. But
as they always do. But
the one thing is the Creature has impeccable taste in women in all 3 movies. And I said, Clint Eastwood gets an uncredited one of his first roles ever. Really? In the second one, he is like working in a lab. So he's a guy with just a white lab coat, just kind of like, he has a couple of lines. So it's kind of cool.
I'll have you send me the title of the book you mentioned, because I don't know it.
I'll send it to you. It's a really good book too. So
now this popped into my head while you were saying that. Maybe it's because he had lovely ladies. One of the things, particularly on Final Guys, we talk about it a lot. We're watching a modern movie, and we'll be like, that movie wasn't that great. You know what it could have used? More nudity.
Yeah.
Look, like especially the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
There was a
blood,
lot of gore,
beasts, and boobs. That was the formula for everything.
How do you handle that kind of subject matter in a class?
Or do you?
You do. I mean, I think the students kind of know this, right, about their parents' films, that that it was a different age, and I think it's one of those conversations that you have that's similar to the ones you have about the gore, or just sort of the excess, or whatever else. Like, is it functional? But I don't think you want functional to only mean like important or metaphorically interesting or whatever it might be.
Right.
It's about these are genres that are meant to impact our body, like first and foremost, right, to horrify us, and so that doesn't only mean that's the only sensation that matters, and these films were about breaking boundaries. I think there's like a punk element to horror that we focus a lot on in the class, and it one of the ways we get there, and I'll kind of get to your specific question, but one of the ways that we talk about the importance of Night of the Living Dead and Texas Chainsaw Massacre is not just, again, in terms alone of, say, the ways in which we have a black lead in Night of the Living Dead, punching out this, excruciatingly annoying white old guy, which is part of the importance of the film. Certainly, it's probably the most important thing about it. Mm-hmm. But the other thing about it is the absolute, middle finger to catharsis at the end of that film. Like, okay, if Hollywood's all about, closure and kind of the utopian sort of like happy ending, what comes with the death of Ben, it's just too much to bear. And at the end of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Leatherface spinning around, right, with his chainsaw, and Sally's face, like, okay, she's a proto-final girl, but she's never going to be okay, right? She's done.
What about the poor guy who was driving the truck and then just runs down the street? And I want to know what happened to that guy.
Yeah, I know.
He gave up truck driving, I'll tell you that much.
But
and then you got The Mist, by the way. Then you go all the way forward to The Mist.
I love that ending. I mean, it's phenomenal.
I think that ending killed it for a lot of people, but true horror fans love it for the ending.
Mainstream audiences often don't want that, right? But again, they also don't want Black Flag or the Sex Pistols. They want, whatever pop crap. So again, I think the punk element of it is important, that horror is about pushing boundaries. And I think that sometimes the sex and the nudity is like an important part of that. I mean, Return of the Living Dead, again, think about the nudity in that film. I mean, it's just kind of flaunting, right? Like this kind of attitude about kind of anything goes in a way that I just find to be completely, hilarious.
You're right about the punk thing. Like, it is the forbidden, because like we were going to the video store and getting this stuff that I'm like, if my mother knew what the hell we were actually watching down here, she's just like, oh, they're whatever. And then we're like, oh, this was rated X, and we're watching Maniac tonight, or we're watching Blood Sucking Freaks, or whatever the hell, the stuff going on in those movies, and it felt like we were, doing something forbidden. It was something illegal almost.
Even the spaces in the video store, right? Like you think about, like there was the porn section with the sometimes with the little beads hanging down,
or the saloon doors,
the little kids, right? Saloon doors. And the horror was often like that too. I mean, it was this magical space. You walk into that section and you're seeing all these incredible box covers, and I'll never forget.
By the way, and Jack, see, you talked about movies that you were watching that seemed taboo. Now, I was watching taboo movies with my dad, and usually my mother was there because it's family movie night. My sister, to this day, is completely traumatized. But when I had to go deeper to rebel against that, I was going to snuff. I was going to Faces of Death, Traces of Death, which is really like wartime footage in Europe, and watching heads get squashed by tank treads and stuff. Like I had to go so deep because my dad was already way deep.
Oh,
and it's so funny because like I can't go there anymore.
Yeah,
I think it short-circuited something in me, but I had to go to really dark places. Like we were like, all right, it's illegal to rent this video, but
you're like the people. You're like that girl in Red Room.
Totally. I mean, we were always. It's like I found a guy. He's going to meet us outside the grammar school, and he's going to give us this tape for $20 in like 1985. And it's like, what's the title? There is no title. It's German.
Jeez.
And you'd be like, oh, awesome. And then you'd see stuff that you can never unsee.
Yeah. No, I think that was part of. I definitely went through that period too with the Faces of Death stuff and all of that. And I think at the time maybe even I felt a little, at least confused about it. Like I remember my father coming down into the basement, and my friend and I were watching one of those Faces of Death movies, and he looked at the screen, and I remember him shaking his head just kind of in disgust, like, what the hell are you watching? And I remember feeling like the Catholic, like guilt, like, kind of coming out, like, and now I think about it, like those experiences, like if you had them now, knowing what you know, right, it would be pretty debasing, I think, to like subject yourself to. But yeah, I think I forgive our 15-year-old selves or whatever, I mean, I think there was a sense of like exploration that was part of
it. Was absolutely
us, right?
Yeah. I blame my dad. He's passed away now, but I blame him for making me go to these dark corners because he raised me in the dark part of the cemetery, and I had to like dig deep underneath the coffins to find something else.
But there is something about that too. I mean, I think like one of the things my students often are surprised by is that they assume that like a huge horror fan is only going to be a huge horror fan, right? Like, and when I say to them, look, I love film. Like I just love movies. Like I love Westerns. I love horror. I love, anything. Give it to
rom-coms. I love rom-coms.
Like whatever. Now, horror is my favorite genre, if I have to name one. But the thing I love about horror is also what really drew me to Shakespeare. Like when I was choosing what I wanted to study in graduate school, tragedy. Horror doesn't lie to you the way that other genres often do, right? Like there's a kind of vision of the realities of the world that it's laying bare that I think even when you're quite young, like you can appreciate in certain ways. Like that the ending of a comedy, that there's something that's off about that somehow. the end of a courtroom drama, right, where like everything is neatly packed up and there's just justice for everyone, right?
I
Like,
confess.
yeah, exactly. So I saw Texas Chainsaw and I thought that's pretty much the way I see the world. So it's sensible.
That's like when you watch No Country for Old Men. And you're like,
right, exactly.
like, what the hell is that? And then it's like, life is not tied up in a bow.
No.
Exactly.
Hey, look, a big family movie that, God, I feel like when the more I talk, this is like therapy. I realize I grew up in the Addams Family. Last House on the Left was family viewing for us.
Really? Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yes.
I don't mean to piss
That's a
off.
tough one.
I don't mean to piss off Hunter, but I have to ask you this. In Dracula adaptations,
Yeah.
have you ever seen the BBC Dracula with
Yeah.
Louis Jourdan? That's my favorite Dracula. It scared the hell out of me when I was 10 years old.
He's the Dracula that probably looks the most like the one described in the novel, you know, with his mustache and everything, right?
That's the most loyal to the book.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And if you watch the Bram Stoker Dracula, when I fought it, the Francis Ford Coppola one, I was like, oh my God, he watched the BBC one, and that's his blueprint for this. It's like beat by beat the same movie, except
that's interesting. Yeah. And then watching Guillermo's, you know, Frankenstein, I was thinking about Coppola a lot, you know, like
the
just
costumes.
in terms of yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting, Jack. I mean, I haven't watched that in a while, but I did like it when I saw it. And I mean, I saw it later in, you know, it was probably in the last 10 years that I went back and watched.
Yeah, I mean, you have to watch that with your, okay, I'm watching something that was made for BBC in the 70s, and it's got half of it's in like videotape and half of it's on film.
Yeah.
So it's not like the most technically savvy movie, but
then again, the BBC, I mean, I go back to like Ghost Watch. That's such a great movie. And,
Ghost
those
Watch is cool.
Christmas, those, you know, Christmas.
The Christmas horror stories.
Yeah. So good.
By the way, I saw a movie on your list I don't see on any lists ever, except my own personal list, Raw.
Yeah. We do that. And I mean, that's not a recommended, that's a required. And
nice.
It's one of those films that the students take to because of the college setting. I mean, you know, Black Christmas is another one that I revere and I think would work well. And so I've been thinking about doing that for this reason. But what I like about Raw is that it's about, you know, the horrors of not just hazing and like kind of a certain kind of obvious like kind of bullying element and but about conformity too, like the horrors of conformity, you know, in that space. And it opens up really interesting conversations. I also am always looking for women directors of horror, and that's become really easy, obviously, like over the last 15, 20 years.
For sure. To
find a lot of great horror films. But it's a harder, you know, find when you're doing the historical material. So Duke Corneau is just so, I mean, those two films, you know, our first two films, I think, I haven't seen the new one, but Raw is a film that for some of them is the hardest to watch. I think a lot of like eating disorder kind of stuff that's metaphorically kind of taken on there is powerful, and it's the body work. Gruesome.
Yeah, don't eat raw chicken. Is there other movie Titan? Was that the other one?
Yeah, that's her follow up.
Oh, that movie.
That's a crazy ass movie. Yeah. It's like, yeah.
I felt like I was on acid watching that movie.
Like Tetsuo the Iron Man, you know, for the modern age. But.
Jack endured that with our buddy late night watching that.
That was that movie was much better. We watched it. We were doing a Zoom and watching it on like Joe Bob or something. That is definitely a movie better with your buddies that you could talk during.
Yeah,
than just sitting down. I got a question for you about a movie that's on your list that I haven't seen. I've seen pictures of it and scenes from it. And Hunter, you're going to be like, "What? The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari? Is that how you say it?"
Oh man!
And like there's a version of it on Amazon right now that has music on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, best way to watch it.
That's the way to watch it. Like what is it about that movie? Like, is that worth sitting down and watching? And am I gonna?
Oh yeah, I think you'll stick to it. I mean, so it's 1920. It's like one of the early important feature length, you know, horror films. it's probably the best example of German expressionism there is available to us. It's about this. It's all constructed in this very artificial way in terms of the sets, the way kind of shadow play is used, costuming, etc., so that it really is not meant in any way to like be a simulacrum of the real world. You know, it's all about capturing basically like the inner turmoil, emotions, right, through the set designs, etc. So when you start looking later, right, for the films that like show the influence of German expressionism, Nosferatu, the original film, certainly, but even Eggers' remake of last year, the Coppola Dracula, the Guillermo's recent film, where actually the look of the film bothered me a little, but that kind of artificial look, right, of the water tower castle thing, whatever it is.
It gets a tad cartoony in spots.
It does.
It's just the way they make films nowadays. I don't know what it is.
It bothers me so much. But Caligari is the best example of that, right? Of thinking about how you can like display basically like powerful interior states, right, externally, right, through these designs. But there's also a great story that's at the heart of it, and a lot of the kind of keys of like psychological horror, dream horror, a lot of David Lynch, like kind of like in this film.
I was so fortunate because at the Alamo Draft House by us years ago, they had Cabinet of Dr. Caligari on. I brought my daughters. They had a rock band from Texas who created a new score to the movie, and they performed it live underneath the screen. Yeah. My girls were probably, I don't know, 19 and 20 at the time, maybe younger. They bought T-shirts when the movie was over. Like they were so psyched. They still wear the shirts.
Nice.
And I'm like,
that's great. We
found a way to get two 20-somethings or late teens so excited about a silent movie from 1920.
Yeah.
Like, they need to do more things like this.
I love the rescorings. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, it was just tremendous.
They'll put like Goblin on some of these. You can find DVDs, especially European, that do that. Like cool scores and rock music.
Yeah.
I met a guy in college who's now one of my best friends, best man, Morgan Hunter.
Morgan.
The reason that we were introduced to each other was he was making a zombie movie at our college with his video camera, and a girl who knew both of us goes, "Oh, have you ever met Jack? He's got the soundtrack to Dawn of the Dead." So this guy Morgan walks up to me and he's like, "Hey, I'm Morgan." I was like, "Oh yeah, I know you." And he's like, "So I hear you have the soundtrack to Dawn of the Dead. I'm making a zombie movie. Could I borrow it and want to be in the movie?" And I was like, "Okay." And now he's like a brother to me.
Yeah, that's true.
Vinyl?
Thank you, the vinyl.
Nice.
Thank you, Goblin.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, got some of those scores from
in your class, do you touch on Hammer much at all?
We do. I mean, sometimes I teach it, and sometimes I'll lecture about it, but we don't watch a film. We didn't watch one of the films this semester, and I'm regretting it. I've been doing a Hammer deep dive lately because there are a couple newish box sets out. I mean, they're so difficult to find, some of the Hammer films because of all the different distributors that they had. But I think it's really useful to talk about Hammer as a kind of form of product differentiation, right? That they're trying to think about how to separate themselves from the universal aesthetic and obviously color, blood, like all of the sex, right? All of the things that they bring to the fore. But that really is like part of the history of horror from the beginning. It's like, there's one trend, and then there's the response to it, right? So sometimes it's an indie trend, and then, it's Hollywood mimicking it. Sometimes it's a indie backlash or a foreign backlash to whatever the Hollywood trend is. I always think about the way that after Scream, all the copycats come out, like all the PG-13 kind of like glossy, American horror films.
Yeah.
And then you get 1999, and it's like Audition, Blair Witch. Like even found footage just seems like a backlash against that kind of glossy, highly produced, Hollywood film. And then certainly New French Extremity and torture porn. And the 2000s are just, that decade is like I think the most grisly of all time, right?
It is.
But Hammer, it's so important. It's such a part of my childhood. I mean, talk about films that were on all the time, and I think it's probably the least watched major influence, right, for Gen X or Gen Z. Sorry,
Yeah, you're right.
Because now they never show it.
They never show it.
Yeah, you can't.
And
find
they like
it anywhere.
it when they see it.
You have to go to Tubi. Tubi's the only channel that really you can kind of stumble upon them.
When we were watching the Del Toro Frankenstein, I was thinking about the laboratories and how cool the Peter Cushing Frankenstein laboratories were, and I was like, this is taking a little cue from those as well.
I just like too, like what I do in class is we replay the opening of Dracula when Renfield gets to the castle, and that's a great moment, right, where it's children of the night, and he kind of walks very slowly up the steps with that candelabra and the spider web and kind of all of that. But it's all, it's dead silent, right? You can hear the crackle of the microphones.
Yeah.
And then the introduction of Christopher Lee in Dracula in 58, where he just comes swooping down these stairs, like, just this physicality, this kind of feral vampire. And they're just thinking it's not just about avoiding lawsuits from Universal. It's about like, how do we reinvent this monster, but in ways that are also consistent with the novel. I mean, I think, there's an argument to be made that Bela Lugosi's out of the novel. There's an argument to be made that Christopher Lee and Gary Oldman are out of the novel. It's so, that novel is just so amazing in terms of like just how vast it all is, that you can just keep. That's why he's the most adapted character, on screen. I think in film history, it's like Sherlock Holmes and Dracula are the most often adapted characters. So.
Which they should go against each other. We need
have.
that. They have?
Why
Did I miss something?
Have they? I don't think I've seen that.
At least in books and comic books.
Oh, we need a good Sherlock Holmes tracking down Dracula movie. All right, I'm going to put
the Hammer Hound of the Baskervilles, right? So.
Yeah, they did have that, yes. All right, this is going to be a tough one. What are 5 movies that you don't think get enough attention that people should really watch and learn from, or experience?
Okay, that is a tough one. I'm gonna have to work my way through this. So Peeping Tom would have been one of them, and I'm glad that came up before, because I also think it's a film that's just worth rewatching. I mean, it's such a beautifully crafted film, and there's something really just nasty at the heart of it, like this idea that he's basically killing people with his camera, right? And this, what it's implying is this notion that there's almost like an act of violence in what they call scopophilia, right? Like the pleasure of looking, and some of that idea is there in like Rear Window. It's there in other great films. But that what we really want as an audience is to like see the unseeable, right? Like the things that we shouldn't be allowed access to. And so I think it's really smart about how it does horror. What else might we talk about? I think that the 1920 Paramount, the first version that they did of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
I don't think I saw that.
It's phenomenal, and I'm a huge fan of the Ruben Mamoulian 1931 Jekyll and Hyde, because it's a nasty little film. I mean, it's like so many of those pre-code films, like Freaks and Island of Lost Souls, that are just pushing the boundaries, just like really, not holding anything back. But the 1921, it is John Barrymore plays Jekyll and Hyde, and it's just figuring out a lot of the language that is going to be the basic stuff of horror moving forward.
Mhm.
It's mainly just in his performance that he's just like doing these facial contortions and these bodily contortions to become Hyde. There is makeup, but it's not like they're using major special effects to transform him. It's not like the 1931 version. And yet when he shifts into that mode, you believe that he's now like the id of Jekyll. And what the film also does really well is when he goes out at night to kind of, it's like it captures that vibe in the novella that like when he goes out at night, we know he's doing the most god awful things we can possibly imagine, but it's not showing it. It's not
Right.
ruining it by diminishing it, by showing us the violence. So it's a really smart film that gets a lot right, very well. Another one would be The Hammer. I think it's 66, Plague of the Zombies. It's their zombie film,
Yeah.
It's so you guys have seen that one? Or
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched it a few years ago.
I think it's great, and I think it's like it's one of the bridge films, that it's like getting us into zombies that look more like kind of what Romero's going to bring in a couple of years, but it's also still tapping into that older like Caribbean, Afro-Caribbean tradition of like
enchantment
flavor. Yeah,
the white zombies.
So that movie, a big piece of my horror genesis is not just movies, but like coffee table books and library books about horror movies.
Yeah.
And I had these these books that had stills from Hammer movies that I didn't see a lot of them, but I knew like the creeping flesh. There was like a hand with candles or something like that.
Yeah.
Years later, when I actually saw the movie, I'm like, oh my God, that's from my book. Plague of the Zombies was one of those ones that my whole life I had like 2 pictures from that movie that I was like, that's zombies, to me until I saw Night of the Living Dead or and so when you finally got streaming and stuff, that the video store you could get some Hammer stuff, but I had to wait till like I was an adult to see that movie.
Right. I know, it's so. I mean, it's so much easier in the UK. And they're remastering the films now. I think it's Arrow. I can't remember who's doing it, but they're putting out these beautiful issues of the Frankenstein movies and Dracula and some of the rarer stuff. And it won't play here. And it's unless you have a region-free DVD player. So I'm always trying to scoop these things up when I can.
Oh
wow. So have you guys seen last year Girl with the Needle? This Danish film.
No.
Girl with the Needle? No.
Yeah. So it's one of those films that got lost, and it was pretty acclaimed critically, but no one watched it. And I thought last year was a good year. I loved Red Rooms. It really got under my skin in a way that very few things tend to do lately. But Girl with the Needle was another one. It's just like this pretty nasty little film, but really beautifully made. I won't spoil any of it, but
we're going to be watching it.
Definitely put on your radar. I'm trying to think. What did I have on my list? So you mentioned Hunter Threads before.
Yeah,
it came up.
Feel good movie.
I don't know that people watch Threads much. I mean, do you guys do you have a memory of the day after coming on that year?
Jason Robards when that came out.
That was required watching, and we had to watch that for school.
Yeah.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Yeah.
and I mean, I remember that terrifying me, and I remember the next day in school, like that's all every kid was talking about. But then I saw Threads, years later, and I mean, you want to just talk about a grueling experience, and the fact that we get the aftermath with the nuclear fallout, and
I don't think I've seen this movie.
Oh, Jack, I have the Blu-ray, Jack. If you want to watch it.
So it is Mick Jackson is the director. It was a made-for-TV 1984 movie. It came out within a few months of the same. I don't remember if it was before or after the day after. I think it was after, because I think it was after. Saying, like, look at the American version of this. We're going to one-up them. Like that was the idea. And the fact that this thing aired on television in 1984 is just it's it's mind-boggling.
Because I guess they could, because they were just thinking, well, this isn't made up. This is probably going to
exactly.
happen. So
I
this
can get
is-
it on
fictional.
Amazon for $3, $4.
Yeah. The day after scared the living daylights out of me because
Same.
we were living in the days of tuck and cover,
Yeah,
of the
exactly.
air raid sirens going off and getting on your desk. So as George Carlin would say, you made a nice little neat pile when you were incinerated. So that bothered me.
Day after did not bother me one bit. We watched it for school, and it just none of us gave a shit.
You animals.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
Threads will get you, Jack. It's
That's on my queue now.
that, and there's a movie with Jane Alexander, Testament.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
So that's a movie. My dad took us to see this at the Ziegfeld when it came out. And it's about William Devane is her husband, and he goes off to work one day, and then nuclear annihilation. And it's set in this suburb where the effects of the bomb, the initial bombing, didn't hit them, but it's all the after effects. And Lucas Haas was her son, and he was very young in it. And there's a scene where he's bleeding out his ass, and she's just dipping his ass in the sink as he's dying in her arms. It's one of the most gut-wrenching. Again, hey, Dad, thanks for having us all come down to the city to watch this as a family and then go to Katz's Deli when we're done.
It's all bonding, you know? It's all...
But yeah, if you're going to watch Threads and you think that's a gut punch, go watch, I'm pretty sure the name is Testament, and that'll finish you off.
Yeah, I never heard of it, but I've never watched that. Okay.
Yeah. Great movie that nobody talks about. I think because it makes you so uncomfortable. You just don't want to revisit.
That's cool. I mean, the only other one that comes to mind, and of course, once we're off, guys, I'll think of way better answers than I've given you. But have you ever seen Borderlands, the British found footage movie?
Is that the zombie movie with the photographs?
No. I'm trying to think what that is. This is
I know what you're talking about.
It's about a church. Yeah, I don't know.
He's talking about this. It's kind of like zombie movie that's set in like the Southwest.
You wouldn't know it's a zombie. It's a kind of a spoiler to say that.
Okay.
It's a whole town like disappears, and all that's left is like the roll of photos. This guy.
Oh, is that Yellow? I can't remember. I think I know what you're talking about.
Talk about Borderlands. I feel like I've seen Borderlands, but
so there's a church. I don't even remember where in the UK all this is happening, but they call in like the what's it called? Sorry, when you do an exorcism, basically like the exorcism team of some kind of like local Catholic diocese, and the guys come in and they're supposed to explore whether or not these reports are real before they'll like send in someone to do an actual exorcism. And what I love about it, even though I'm botching it somewhat, is that it's one of the great it figures out like why the cameras need to be rolling the whole time, right? Like the way that found footage films always struggle to explain why are you still filming.
Yeah.
The reason in this case is because the Catholic Church is demanding, right? The Catholic Church is really nervous that.
Is this also called Final Prayer?
Yeah, that's the alternate.
I've seen this.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and I think it's funny. But it has a great. I mean, it's just smart writing, just in terms of explaining again why the cameras need to run the whole time, and it has a great ending. I mean,
the ending is great.
Yeah. So
now I got to watch this. This is great. I'm getting things I got to watch. When you think you've seen it all,
I know.
There's always that's the beauty of the horror genre, by the way. You're always this as much as you. I mean, Jack, just between Final Guys, we've maybe watched 2,000 movies in 8 years for that show, and we're discovering new stuff all the time.
That's great. That
we just missed. And
well, I reported on Peeping Tom last week, and our other host was like,
"You did."
He was like, "What? What is this movie you're talking about?" So he's going to watch it.
We got to educate him. We're trying. It's hard.
I love it. No, we all have those friends. No, I agree. And the great thing too is that some of these films, the older films, are finally becoming available, and I take such like delight from finding like a film from 1940 or 1950 or 30s, whatever, that I haven't seen. And so I'm putting together a list, and the Hammer films, again, they're becoming more available. So
Well,
yeah.
if you do a Hammer deep dive, there'll be somebody sitting in the back row named Jack who's going to be taking notes and interjecting.
All the time.
By the way, Savage Land is the name of that movie.
Savage Land, that's it.
Savage Land, okay.
It's really, I thought it would be garbage, and I was sucked in.
Pretty good. I don't think I know it.
Yeah.
I was thinking of something else.
It's on Tubi.
We were talking about it. Yeah.
All right, so we don't want to keep you too late because you need your beauty rest. You got class tomorrow.
I'm going to a film festival tomorrow, actually, in Rochester. Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to be doing business meetings at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Oof, jeez.
I'm going to be back in this chair.
It makes you feel better. I'll be grading papers on Monday, so
Well, just. By the way, I wanted to tell you, I have one of my dearest and oldest friends. He is a high school teacher. He's an English teacher, but he also teaches film. And every year he mixes it up. He'll do Godzilla, Planet of the Apes. But the steady movie he always teaches is The Swimmer, which is...
Wow, really?
It was when we were working in the phone company together in the 90s. It was like our laugh, scream out loud, fun movie to watch. And then we read the short story by Cheever, and it became more than it was. But it's like he teaches all the things that we got a kick out of when we were like young.
Yeah. But you're talking about the Burt Lancaster version?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. All right. It's funny. I have a good friend who has started the movie multiple times because I'm always talking it up, and he can't ever get through it because he thinks that like it's like kind of offensive the direction it's going in, and I'm like, you just have to get past that point, Like,
yes.
All the good stuff is like coming.
I will tell you, because of that movie, anytime I take my wife to the pool or the beach, I'll look at her and go, "Hey, honey, let's get wet." It's like I'm Lancastering it every time.
Yeah, well, he's a presence in that film, to say the least. Strutting around town with his shirt off all the time.
Hey, you can see his butt. So, hey, ladies, tune in. It's been absolutely a blast having you on here. We could probably talk for 10 hours about horror movies. And our list of things that we're going to exchange would just keep growing and growing.
I love it.
Other than your classroom, is there anywhere else that people can find you and find your work and things that you're doing?
Yeah, so I have deliberately, getting back to our theme, I've kind of removed myself almost entirely from social media these days, but I'm available if anyone wants to chat through my email at UConn, just semenza@uconn.edu. Happy to talk. I'm working on a couple book projects now that are horror related. One is a book on the Babadook, and a film that I love, and I think I get to spend the next year or so writing about. And then I'm working on it's actually a big book on sort of horror as at the cutting edge, like as a kind of genre that is always at the edge, innovation wise in the history of film, right? So I'm trying to attack that annoying idea that horror is the lowest of the genres, right? That it belongs lower in the hierarchy, and I'm trying to reverse that by talking about how it's always actually been a leader in a variety of different ways. So trying to spend a little more time writing that book.
Talk about Sinners.
By the way, this year I think it's telling people Sinners and Weapons and Together. This the Long Walk. There's so many great horror movies that are just great movies. So,
and the only ones that make money. I think One Battle After Another is a phenomenal film, and I think it's great, but no one's going to see it. And you even horror films that aren't as good as the ones you just named. I mean, people go to see it. So.
Well, horror makes money because they don't spend money.
Yeah, right.
So
exactly.
They're not spending $200 million on the movie and $200 million on promotion. So they're smart.
Exactly.
We will.
Well, guys, I appreciate you having me on.
Oh,
Well,
this is
we're going to
fantastic.
sign off here, but don't hang up yet.
Yeah, I won't.
Jack wants to talk more Hammer horror.
Happy to.
All right. Well, everybody watching, I hope you enjoyed this. Greg, it's been an honor and a pleasure to have you on, and we'll definitely look forward to having you on some other time. You're always welcome. And especially, I always have these visions of having like a panel to talk about like what's the best vampire movie or what's the best this or that. So we'll consider you a panelist.
Please do.
And
we'll play match game.
All right. Everybody else, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on
Monster Men.
Monster Men.